was injured in the military. I had been on pain medication for about 10 years and was dealing with chronic constant pain from a back injury, which I had 6 spinal surgeries with. And so I was drinking one night and went out riding my motorcycle and was popping wheelies on the freeway with no helmet on, and ended up crashing the motorcycle and hitting my head, and in doing that, I ended up into a new reality.
Guy here. Welcome to my podcast. Today's guest is Jeremiah Pospisil. Jeremiah, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. I love this conversation, and what a top guy today. Jeremiah had a motorbike accident, and from that, he had an extraordinary NDE, a near-death experience. And the big thing to come out of it was the power of perspective, and how perspective and perception on things, how a simple shift in your life and in thinking can literally change your life, which was fascinating. We also dive into the topic of the purpose of life and why we are here in the first place. This conversation goes deep. Jeremiah is a sincere, heartfelt guy, and I'm excited for you to be here in this conversation today. Of course, if you want to go deeper with the work yourself, myself as Live in Flow, we run workshops, 1-day workshops and 3 and 5 night retreats here in Australia. If you're seeing this and you want to find out more about our work, simply click the links below or come back to liveinflow.co. We also offer free 7 days of meditation, and the link is below somewhere. Perfect if you're new to meditation as well. Anyway, enjoy this conversation with Jeremiah. It's awesome. Jeremiah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Guy, very much. Thank you for having me on here.
You know, every time I bring on a guest, mate, we always end up chatting before, and I feel like we could talk for hours even before we hit the record button. So I'm like, oh my God, we got to start getting this down on tape, so to say, before we chew it up anymore. But I'm genuinely excited to see what comes out of today.
I am as well.
I ask everyone, if a stranger sat next to you at a dinner party and asked you what you did for a living, what would you say?
I would tell them before my NDE that I was a crane operator or I was in the military. And I really defined myself by what I did. Now I define myself by who I am. And I think a lot of people really should look at that. Who are you? And that's one question that I had my whole life is, who am I? So if I was to sit down next to somebody, I would say that I am a encourager of life and truth. I am a voice of reason behind the reality of our lives, and that I am ultimately an example of what love is in this existence.
Amazing. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I only heard yesterday, I was listening to an Audible while I was cooking, and I think that very thing came up to say, well, why do people ask, what do I do? I want people to ask me, who am I? What's behind all that? And I always find it a great place to start a conversation, because it just opens up all directions, because everybody I get on pretty much don't really identify by what they do anymore.
Right. You can't. I mean, because what we do changes so much, but who we are, it should be the very static nature of our lives, and I used to think that as, I would define somebody by what they did. And for me, it's more of, who are you outside of your job? What do you do? What are you passionate about? What do you love about life? And how do you express yourself in every circumstance that you have to do that? And I find it to be more revealing about who a person is. It's not what you do, because what you do is just a byproduct of what you need. So we need money, we need a house, we need a job, and so we do these things in hopes that, that we provide that. But ultimately, it's not about that. It's about who we are. And that's something that I questioned my life for the entirety of it, until I had my near-death experience. And then I had to realize that, well, I am something beyond my job. I am actually something behind that. I'm something behind my body. And when I had my near-death experience, I had to look at myself and say, what is behind my body? Who am I behind this skin? Am I this skin? Am I this body? But I'm not. My hair falls out, my arm could be chopped off, my leg could go away, but I'm still ultimately me. So what is me? Who am I? And I found that, I'm like everybody else out there. I want to feel love. And that's something that I found for my NDE, is that love for me was the energy, or was the life force of my existence.
Yeah.
We all go out and seek love. We want relationships. We want things that make us feel love. Ultimately, it's my belief that every decision that we make is based upon love. It's based upon love of a safe space, or somebody that we know that will care for us. So love for me turned out to be the ultimate reality of existence.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So before you had your NDE, you spoke about the military and also a crane operator. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
And when taking yourself back, and I'm assuming you did the military before the crane operating, and then moved into crane op from the military. I'm guessing here.
Right. I went back and forth. I had a break in service from the military, so I went cranes and the military, and then back to cranes again.
Got you. So when you take yourself back to old Jeremiah before the NDE, then, and those very things that you spoke about, ultimately all is love, and this connection and essence, that we're all connected to something far greater than that's tangible with the physical senses, right? So were you questioning things back then? Was there something within you that was driving you to look at that, or were you just oblivious and totally just kind of in, I don't know if I want to say the matrix, but in that world of what you were doing?
Yeah. So, when you think about our lives, we stem from a place of not understanding anything. And we're taught at a very young age what to be and how to be it. So for me, being a baby, I was taught that I had to feed myself and I had to create an existence of happiness, so I continued on that process through my whole life, where I was constantly seeking to make myself happy and feed myself and bring myself money so that I can survive. So I never really thought outside of those parameters, because I really thought that's all reality was, but looking back on it, I see how ultimately everything I was doing was trying to facilitate an environment of happiness and love. Right now, after my NDE, it all kind of shifted. Everything that I believed about myself and who I was and what I did, was wiped away. It was turned into this experience that I had to really question where I got my love from, what created love, what created happiness in my life, because I dealt with a lot of depression. I dealt with a lot of anxiety throughout my whole life. And I had believed that what that was doing was me trying to be somebody that I wasn't. I was trying to curtail my experience with others to what they needed in that environment. And I wasn't very true to myself. So after my near-death experience, having lost my sense of reality, I had to really look at myself and, what am I? Where do I get my love from? Where do I get my environment of reality from? So I never thought about it before then, but it was only after I lost everything and saw things from a different perspective that I was able to put everything together.
Okay. So how did the near-death experience happen? What were you doing at the time? What occurred?
Yeah. So the near-death experience happened in probably the lowest place of my life. I was dealing with severe depression. I'd been through multiple relationships that I had lost, and I was injured in the military. I had been on pain medication for about 10 years and was dealing with chronic constant pain from a back injury, which I had 6 spinal surgeries with. And so I was drinking one night and went out riding my motorcycle and was popping wheelies on the freeway with no helmet on, and ended up crashing the motorcycle and hitting my head, and in doing that, I ended up into a new reality of life.
What speed were you doing? Do you know when you came off?
About 65, 70 miles per hour.
Because I ride motorbikes. And
yeah. So,
yeah.
So when that happened, I went into this very dark space. It was an open void. And in this open void, I had these lights surround me to create a tunnel. And these lights just kind of warped in, almost like Star Trek or Star Wars, where they go into hyperspace and you go down this crazy tunnel and all these lights are coming at you. Well, it was like that all around me, and it created a tunnel. And in this tunnel, the lights turned into different color lights. And they were the most beautiful, vibrant lights I'd ever seen before. And as
were you in pain at this point? Sorry to interrupt. So you'd come off the bike. Do you remember coming off the bike, or just?
I remember coming down and then flipping up in the air and hitting my motorcycle. And I remember hitting my head. And when I hit my head, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is how I die. This is the end of it. Everything that was my life is now over, and this is how I go.
So I just want to find out a bit more before you go into the NDE, because like, were you on a mission to kill yourself that night? You think? Did you care?
I didn't care. I didn't care. I had dealt with depression my whole life, and I wasn't trying to kill myself, but I wasn't trying to be respectful to myself at all. I was just trying to live life and trying to get as many outside experiences into my life that would kind of cover up the pain that I had in my life. You know what I mean? So that's what this was. This was just an experience for me to drown the pain of reality.
Far out. So you hit your head, and the next thing you know, you're in this void. I'm in
this complete void of just weightlessness where I'm almost floating. And I never really thought about near-death experiences. My dad had one and tried to explain to me his, and I never really got it, and in this place, I didn't know what it was. It was completely new. I wasn't feeling any pain. I was floating around freely. And, these lights started forming in a tunnel around me, and I was in the middle of this tunnel. This tunnel was probably like 40 to 50 feet in diameter. And I remember seeing all these colors, and they looked like pixels on a TV screen. They were different colors. They were different experiences that I had had. And I remember looking at one light thinking, what is this? What are these lights? What are these colors? Because they're so different from what I was just dealing with. I was just on a motorcycle. What happened? And I remember looking at this light, this one pixel out of millions and millions of pixels. And I remember being enveloped by a pixel. I remember being inside of the pixel, and inside of that pixel was a moment of my life. It was a simple moment. It was nothing that made any sense to me. It was nothing that I could have remembered. It was just a moment of my life that I was meant to see. And in that moment, it was, it was me at a grocery store, or at a gas station, I think it was. And I simply said the words, hi. I said hello to somebody. And I remember the feeling that I had, how me saying hello was coming from me. I remember the value of that. And I remember the value of the person receiving the hello, and how much it meant to them. They were having a bad day, or they were just not living life happily. And I remember how much my hello meant to them. And it seems like such a mundane thing to think about. I would never have remembered this experience on my own. And it started to put together a puzzle that every small circumstance in their life ultimately leads to our placement in reality currently. So that hello subsequently changed that person's life in a way that was positive for them. And it made me feel good, as though I was living my purpose in this life. And so I went down this tunnel, and I came out of that experience. Once I knew that, then I saw another experience of where I had this. My mom would send me to go buy milk all the time. We lived down the street from the store, so me and my brother would go walk down to the store to go buy milk or groceries or whatever. Well, this one particular time, there was a guy who wanted to steal my milk from me. And I don't know about you, but I've never had anybody want to steal milk from me. That just seemed ridiculous. I'm like, okay, I don't understand why you're trying to steal my milk, but I didn't want him to steal my milk. I didn't want him to take that from my family. And so he ultimately tried to pull the milk from me, and we got into a scuffle and got into a fight. And in this near-death experience moment where I went back to that place, I realized something different. It wasn't this guy trying to steal something from me as much as it was his trying to provide something for his family that he wasn't able to provide. And I felt a sense of awe when I looked at him in this new regard and said, this guy's a human just like I am. This guy has struggles just like I do. And so who am I to say that, he's not looking to find happiness for his life or trying to provide something for his family? And it really touched me. and I never looked at life that way. I looked at people's reactions as that was plain and simple who they were, but ultimately who they project to the world comes from and stems from a long line of experiences for them.
Mm-hmm.
So their truth is different than their reaction, but they're trying to do something in that reaction. And so I got to see a new version of an experience that I thought to be negative. And I went down this tunnel and I just started putting these little pieces together that really explained to me what life was, and it really, it changed my whole perspective of everything, and, near the end of the tunnel, I remember, and I'd gone through probably 20 or 30 of these experiences where I would put together little pieces of what reality is and how I'm looking at it versus how it's really meant to be looked at. And I started to realize that everybody is their own individual person. Although we live in a society where we're trying to be somebody else, or we're trying to project ourselves onto another life. We love the car that this person has and we want to be that cool. So we're going to go buy that car. We want to buy these clothes. That's not who we are. Ultimately, we're these unique collection of experiences in our life that are completely unique. Nobody has the experience that Guy has. Nobody has the experience that Jeremiah has. I have my very own experiences that make me completely unique, and all of my viewpoints and all my truths are based upon those experiences. So I tell people we're like a Picasso painting. We're so individually unique. And the moment that we start to embrace the uniqueness of everyone, the moment we start to actually value who they are as a person, and so I got to the end of this tunnel, and there were blank spaces where those pixels and where those colors were. And those colors were colors that I'd never seen before. They were most vivid, beautiful colors, and I got to the end of the tunnel and these pixels were blank. I could see the outline of where the colors should be, but there was nothing there. And I realized, okay, I may have a chance now to go back and paint these pictures. I may have a chance to go back and create pixels, right? And the moment that I thought that, I realized that there was a being behind me. I realized that there was a very large being, and I don't like to say he's male or female, but it definitely was a female or a male energy. It was a very powerful projective energy, because male and female is just physical, the nature of who we are, right? Our spirits are completely unique. So, but this being was there, kind of pushed me along this entire time, trying to guide me or keep me going. And so I noticed the blank spaces, then I noticed the being. I thought, oh wow, I'm not alone. And as soon as I remember acknowledging the being, he said 3 words to me. He didn't speak the whole time. He didn't try to tell me anything. He said 3 words: become the purpose. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what the purpose is. What is the purpose? Like, what is the purpose of my life? What is the purpose of me being here on earth? What is it? That's something I've been searching for my whole life. And so I didn't understand what he meant to become the purpose. And immediately after the being spoke that, there was a white, powerful light that came from infinity and just kind of enveloped my essence of who I was, the energy in that moment. And I remember feeling this pure, loving energy that just went into who I was and attached itself. And it became this amazing experience, but I didn't know what the energy was. I knew that it held information. I knew that it held secrets, if you will, but I didn't know how to define it in that moment. And so after it permeated my body, my essence, I remember immediately being back in my body in the physical world on the side of the freeway. I had 8 broken ribs. I had a punctured lung. I had a broken wrist. I had fluid filling up in my chest. And I thought, oh my gosh, what was that? I mean, I didn't know what that was. And so I had to go to the hospital, and I had to have 2 chest tubes put in. I was in the hospital for about 2.5 weeks,
Wow.
And go ahead.
Before you jump into the hospital, did you see the being, or did you just hear it and feel its presence with you?
I felt its presence. I never looked back, but it's almost, I tell people, like when you're in the grocery store or you're in a line and somebody is really close to you and you just feel the presence next to you. You can't really define it, but that they're there. And so all I have is a perception of this being behind me that was just like a shadowy figure. just the head and the shoulders, and it was big, but it was definitely behind me. So I never saw it. I never looked back. It was just a feeling of the presence there.
Yeah. And how long do you think you were out for? Like all that went on. I know
Yeah.
people struggle with that totally. Every time I speak to someone.
Yeah. I'm going to struggle with it too, but it was probably a couple minutes. It was a couple minutes. But it felt like an eternity. It felt like, time has no bearing when you go to the other side. There's nothing like time. And, people that have these near death experiences know that. They know, they say two things. I don't know what time was. And they say, I felt love, and so those are the two things that I was looking to go try to explain afterwards, but yeah, you don't feel time. It's just interesting.
Yeah. So they obviously, you ended up in hospital. You got taken to hospital.
Yeah. Yep.
How long were you in hospital for? You say 2.5 weeks?
I was in 2.5 weeks. Yeah. I went in to have a chest tube put in, and then went home for a week, and then went back because I had to have another chest tube put in because I still had internal bleeding. And so they put another chest tube into me, and I was in there for another week and a half,
Okay. And how were you managing that time in hospital? Because obviously you've come off your motorbike, you hit rock bottom, like you were like you said, in depression, drunk, pulling wheelies up the freeway going 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You've come off, hit your head. You've had this mind-blowing experience.
Right.
Then now you're back in your body. You're obviously in pain, and you're laying on the bed in hospital. How were you where was your mind at the time? How were you processing all of that?
It was such a weird place to be, when you deal with something that's so supernatural, and then you come back into this experience, for instance, this is something that people don't think about, but when you are your pure essence, you're in this freedom. This is why people say love. You're in this freedom of expression throughout your energy. When you come back into your body, you're dealing with a body, a physical form that is deteriorating, that takes more resistance for your energy to flow through it, which is why we feel tired and whatnot. So I'm sitting in the hospital thinking, I'm back in this body. I feel all of this pain. And where I was, I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel anything but happiness and love and joy. And I wanted to go back there, and it really gave me an opportunity. Being in the hospital was a very important part of this because I had to sit still and I had to think about what had happened, and I had to process what had happened. Where normally, if I was okay and I had this experience, woke back up, no broken bones, no nothing, I would wake up and just continue on with my life. But I think being in the hospital was a part of the process where I had to calm myself, calm my mind in order to process everything that happened. And so I took this opportunity to kind of reevaluate my life and think about what becoming my purpose meant. And so I had been on prescription pain medication for my spinal injury in the military for about 9.5, 10 years. And I realized that as soon as I got done with my healing of my ribs and my wrists, that I would quit taking my pain medication cold turkey. I realized in that space of the hospital that I needed to start meditating because I felt like calming my mind allowed me the space and the quietness to kind of decipher what was told to me. And so the hospital stay was really the most beautiful part of it because that was actually the flipping point. The moment in the NDE was an observation, but without an action with observation, you'll never make forward momentum. You can only observe it. So without the action, it's like information and wisdom. Until you take that information and put it into play in your life and turn that into wisdom, right, and action, it will only be a wasted space in your mind. So I wanted to think about all this stuff and start to put these things in action. So meditation was another thing for me, which I could never meditate before because I had been in chronic pain for 10 years. I couldn't sit still. I got ADHD, I think, and I just couldn't sit still and meditate. So I decided that if I was going to completely change my life, because this experience was a whole new one, that I needed to go all in how I experienced it and how I move forward.
Wow. So, so I'm chuckling because, we were speaking off air about our experiences that we've had personally and how you just can't quite go back. You've got to, you're living with heart and soul, like it's amplified and you just want to come from that place, even though the outside world wants to contain you so often. So what did you do? You were a crane operator. Was it your company? Were you working for someone else? Did you just go back to work and get in a crane after you recovered? Like, what happened?
Yeah. So luckily, being injured in the military, they retired me. They gave me a medical retirement. So I have a income from the military for the rest of my life because of the injury.
Got it.
So I didn't have to go back into reality and go back to work. I actually decided to, I had been working as a crane operator at the time, and I decided not to go back to work and just to live a simplistic life. I'd always been searching for, a way to make money and a way to build a bigger house and have a nicer car. And so I realized that I could actually just live a very simple life. And the more that I quieted down my life, the more I would have time to kind of explore who I am and to understand the nature of the reality of this experience. Like, because that's not something I ever thought about. Like, why are we here? And that's something that we kind of, we question ourselves, like, what is the reason for this? But we don't really go into that. We go back into our lives. We're like, well, I can't answer that question right now. So I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. Well, I thought, you know what? Why can't I answer that question? Why can't I think about what we're actually doing here? Why can't I look at my body and see how it functions? Why can't I look at our experience before life and after life and see what the middle of this experience is doing? So I couldn't go back to that. I had to dedicate my entire life to understanding that. And so I spent 3.5, 4 years, and I'm still doing it to this day, of I'm researching what we're doing here. I look at science, I look at religion, I look at spiritual texts, and I try to bring them all together to see an understanding and a point of reasoning behind all of them. And I think they all really speak to the same thing. They all speak to energy, and they all speak to love. And in that energy and love, we find oneness, and that became my whole goal, to go explore where we are, what we are to become, and how we're going to do that. And
those 3 words that were spoken to you then, become the purpose.
Become the purpose.
Become the purpose. Do you think that was directly for you, or do you think that was a message to get out there for everyone?
I ultimately think it's a message for everyone. I mean, if you're not becoming your purpose, if you're not being the purpose of what you're doing here, you're ultimately wasting your time. If we're living our lives for our physical bodies, then when our physical bodies die, the experience is over. And so becoming the purpose for me and also feeling love really kind of mesh together. So when I look at my experiences in life, I'm ultimately seeking love. I'm seeking love and acceptance from other people. I'm seeking love and acceptance for myself. And the problem that I had my whole life was I didn't feel enough love for myself. So I depended on outside sources to bring me love and to bring me acceptance and to validate who I was, and I noticed that I curtailed my existence based upon people's perception of who I was. And so when I was dealing in my depression, what I was dealing with was a reality of my past. And I was looking at it from a new perspective, because every day, like including right now, we are on the cutting edge of our information. You are the smartest you have ever been in your life right now, just as I am right now as well. This is the smartest I've ever been. I've collected the most amount of information in my life. So I was looking at an old experience with a new set of eyes, basically. And so I would hold myself accountable for the decisions that I made back then. And I wanted to change that because I knew a better route. I knew a better way. And so I realized that I couldn't change that. And my depression was wanting to change that. But I did realize that the experience in that moment gave me information that helped me live a better life in the long run. So that one moment of negative experience that lasted for a short period of time gave me a lifetime of information to change my life. But not only that, it gave me information to share with people. Because I have a mouth, because of eyes and ears, and I'm able to communicate with people, I can share this information now with people to help make their lives better. So if that one negative moment of my life that I perceived gave me a lifetime of information to make my life better and also give to other people and create a butterfly effect through life, then that's not bad. That's not a negative experience. That's actually a hard taught lesson, but that lesson is a benefit to my life and others around me. And same with my anxiety. My anxiety was me trying to control objects in the future or experiences in the future. And I can't do that. I can only look at myself and say who you are right now is the best version of you in your entire existence. And you have an opportunity to live in this moment and to become all that you're meant to become. And when you do that, you are living your purpose. You are living true to your heart and your soul. One thing I learned from, um, through this research is that, our heart really is the most powerful entity in our body, and here's a question I ask people, and I'm going to ask you this too, Guy. Do you know why we represent love with the heart, the physical organ of the heart? Why do we represent love with the physical organ of the heart? And this is an interesting thing to think about.
Why do we represent love from the physical organ of the heart?
Right.
Boy, I have no idea. The first thing that thought to me is that if talking about the physical heart pumps blood around and pumps love around,
pumps life
through you. So to me, then it's pumping love.
It's pumping energy, and the energy in this experience is allowing us to experience this life. And our life is meant to be experienced in a positive fashion, So when you think about love, you must think about energy. When you think about the feelings of love that we get from our relationships, or we get from nature, for existence, for example. So when I go out into nature and I feel the love of the universe or the trees, I feel that power and that energy in me. And you'll find that a lot of people, when they go out in nature, they're like, I feel alive. Well, what makes you feel alive? It's the energy that it forms, that it gives you, right? And when you're out in nature, you're getting this pure essence of the energy. When you come back into existence in society and you're around people, you're getting an energy that's been contorted and manipulated. Our perception of love has been manipulated based upon our experience of love, right? So we look at love as one thing, but in reality, it's everything. So what I tell people is that we are love. Based upon the fact that we are not our bodies, we are the energy within the bodies that are controlling these bodies. Okay, we are that energy. And if energy is love, because love is the balance of existence, right? When we feel love, we feel a balance, just like in nature with the trees and the flowers, they have life when they have balance. And just like in love, when we have balance, we feel love. So when you are living that love, you're living a purpose beyond your physical body. And so a lot of people are living for their emotions. They're living for their physical body, and emotions are simply an interpretation of a truth. But when you live from your heart, or you live from your love, you are living the very truth of your nature. You're becoming the purpose of your life, right? But we have such an abstract view of what love is that it becomes a transaction. It becomes, I'm going to love somebody, but I need them to love me back in this way. And it does become a conditional experience. And that's not what love is. Love is a free flowing one-way gift.
So are you saying then, and this is how I look at it, we always wait for the stars to align before we take the step to change, as opposed to taking the step and the change will come.
Right.
So from listening to you, it's become love, be the resonance, and then your purpose will flow from that.
It will.
But do the work, like lean into the heart, lean into that aspect, create space in your life like you have. Right. Slow things down, and then the purpose will resonate out of that, or your unique gift to the world, and you will then be able to follow upon it from that vantage point.
Absolutely,
as opposed to all the conditions. Yeah,
that's absolutely true.
The question for you then, Jeremiah, is when did this happen, the NDE, and how is your anxiety and depression since? And you also spoke about pain medication as well that you'd been on for a long time. Right. Like, I'm interested to know how that's been managed since the accident.
Yeah, so I don't have depression, anxiety anymore. I quit taking my pain medication completely cold turkey after I healed up from my ribs breaking in my wrist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I didn't find any sense for it. I had to find a new purpose for the pain that I was feeling. So if you think about working out, or you think about running long distances, I was in the military. I ran a lot. I did a lot of working out. I had to deal with physical pain. Mm-hmm. But what I did in that moment was I had to control my pain. I had to control the purpose or the reasoning for having that pain. So like a runner, when you run, you feel the pain in your body. You want to stop. You want to shut it down, but you're like, no, this is going to make me healthy. This is going to win me a race. So you're reevaluating, and you're putting value in a new perspective of your experience. So I had to do this with myself. And this is what I believe we can do with our depression, anxiety as well, is realign the value of the experience. Change the perception of what you're looking at. So if I look at my body as being degenerate, being in pain constantly, I'm going to feel that pain. But if I look at myself as saying, I have a experience now where I'm still alive, when this pain is teaching me the physicalities of my body is not me, because I'm still joyous and happy in my mind, right? My body may be shutting down, but that's not me, so I have to revalue the pain. So, and this happened in 2018. So it's been going on for about 4 years now.
Oh, well, yeah. 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's definitely a new experience,
Yeah, no, it's incredible, mate. And what would you say then to somebody listening to this right now that is suffering from depression or is going through a hard time or potentially their own lower point? Because you know it would be easy to say, well, you had a near-death experience and you got to have this awe expiring. Of course you're going to change. There could be that. And I've had many people say, well, why do we even wait to have a near-death experience? Or why do we have to hit rock bottom to adjust? But when we're in the pain, and I've certainly suffered like a very low-grade depression through my 20s. I really struggled to find my own identity, and it was ripping me up inside. So it's easier said than done, because when you're in it, it's like you really need somebody to come and give you a compass to guide you out of there. But so often it's really hard to do.
It is. It's very, very hard to do. And this is something that starts with our habits. Okay. So depression is a habitual format that we've created in our mind down our neural pathways. Okay. So we have this thing called neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. Okay. So neurogenesis is our brain's ability to create new neural pathways, new thoughts. And neuroplasticity is the availability for us to change our patterns or change our thoughts. Okay. So what I would tell people is this. Number one, you've got to start at loving yourself. And that starts with a habitual format in your life. When you look at your life from the past and you say, I'm not good enough, I messed up, this and that, it's not true. Okay. That reality only existed in that experience. That reality no longer exists in who you are. When you're listening to this story right now, you are free of that. You're gone. You're not living in that moment. So when you release yourself from the past experiences and you live within the current moment of your reality, of your life, you could say to yourself that now I have a better perspective. Now I can make a different choice. Now I can live a different way because I acknowledge that. But we also have to go through these experiences. In order to know what love truly is in its fullest capacity, we have to experience the lack of love. It's the duality of life, and it's the nature of reality. Okay. We have to want in order to know what is and what we want and what we achieve for. Okay. And so when you are in this depression or you're dealing with situations that cause you heartache, the one thing that I tell people also is that if you're feeling this deeply, you have a gift. If you are not feeling anxiety or depression, you're not as in tune to the reality and nature of life. The more that you feel, the more that you can understand where those feelings are coming from. And it's people that don't have depression that I question, like, who are you? Because I believe everybody has depression. I just think we don't talk about it. But I think that having the gift of depression and having the gift of anxiety and having the gift of heartache really creates a synchronicity in your life that you have a deeper understanding of what your nature of truth is. So take value in that. Take value in your understanding of feelings and the depth of feelings and emotions in your life, because those emotions and our perception of those emotions are the stamp of reality in our life. So we go through life, we take in information. This is one thing I tell people too, is think about what we're doing here. So if you look at our lives before we were born, we were an energy being, and then an energy being gets born into a physical energy being. And then at the end, we depart back into an energy being. And this is simple stuff. This is people would have died and come back to life and said, this is what we as people in this physical life understand. We are here. So what are we doing here? So we are, and this is a crazy thing, but when you think about it, we are designed to intake information and energy. our senses. Our eyes are taking in energy information, okay? Our ears are taking in sound information, energy information. Our noses, same thing, our feeling of touch. So what we're doing is we're taking in information and we're transforming it and we're building it. So if we look at it from a perspective of an enjoyment or love, we are taking that energy and we are growing it. Right? If we're looking at it from a negative perspective of my life sucks, this experience sucks, we're diminishing it. We're closing it. We're creating an encapsulated energy, which creates a feeling of stress and like I can't get this energy out because we're not loving the experience. The experience itself is meant to be viewed from a place of love, because when you feel that love and when you understand love, you know it's freeing. You know, it opens you up further, and we're expressing the energy that we're receiving in a greater way, right? And then when we're giving that out, we have this thing where we emit light photons. This is scientifically proven fact. We take in energy and then we emit energy, and people call it our aura. People call it our vibe, whatever you want to call it, but we're emitting energy back into the universe based upon our experience, you know? So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what do you think ultimately our purpose is as a human being? Why do we come here for the experiences? Why do we come here for that pain? And where does that lead into emitting it back into the universe? Because there is a fabric that connects everything and everyone.
That's a very good question, Guy. So you had a recent guest on, which is one of my favorite people in all this world, Neil Walsh. And he spoke it so eloquently, and he spoke the truth, is the soul. This is the moment where we are evolving our soul. Okay. If our soul is our collection of experiences, right? It's the acknowledgement of the collection of experiences with the imprint of the energy from that experience. Okay. And that's ultimately releasing energy from our bodies in the form of light photons. This experience is meant to transform our soul. And this is something I think you'll find across the board that people will say to you, is that this experience is not so much a class, but it's like a boot camp of our soul. It's here to train us. We're in this place where we have the ability to create these experiences and live these experiences. But the more that we perceive them from a placement of love, the more that we feel alive. And the more that we feel alive, when our physical body leaves us, we are still alive in this energy form, in this intelligence of information.
And what do you feel or think then ultimately the universe gets out of it? So like if we're a soul having these experiences, what do you think ultimately then that purpose is for expanding beyond that? I ponder these things all the time as well.
I do too. Here's something to think about. So they've recently came out with a theory or hypothesis that dark matter in space is just information. So if you think about the universe, you think about information and you think about energy. Okay. And somehow they're connected, right? So if we're emitting energy and we look at this universe as being energy, which it is, science has already proven this. Okay. So just by that fact, we are now one. You are energy. I am energy. All of your listeners are energy. We're not this physical body. We are energy within energy within energy. We're on layers. Okay. So what it gets is if we're transforming energy in this experience and we're making it greater through the perception of love, we are expanding the universe. Ultimately, we are giving back to the universe an energy that it gave us in a small, minuscule seed. We've grown it into a tree and we've given it out. So we're expanding the universe. So I always wondered about this. Is the expansion of the universe based upon intellect? Is it based upon our perception of reality? Is our intake of information and energy getting thrown back into the universe, which actually creating the expansion of the universe? Because if everything started from a single point, it started from all of the information. And to expand the energy and information, it would have to be manipulated or grown, you know, and I wonder if that's what this is too. So, I mean, this is just a theory I have. This is not real. I'm not saying this is truth, you know, but it's just a very interesting thing to think about.
Oh, like totally, constantly, you know, because especially when we're having a very human experience and a very physical, and it can be very challenging, very tough, and you know, like, and you just want to you just want to bail. You just want out, like, leave me alone. Like, this is, and all these kind of metaphysical concepts and can feel so abstract and so disconnected. Like, it's like, what the fuck are we talking about in the first place, kind of thing, right? Because I need to deal with this now. And quite often, like I say, and I mentioned it more on the podcast, because you see people diving into this work, really chasing the mystical experience or chasing the manifestation of something and so forth, and which is great. Like, I've certainly gone down those roads for an exploration, but not to run away from the shit that I need to deal with on a daily basis as well.
Right.
And I think it's just, there's this fine line, isn't there, of really coming home and finding yourself, leaning into that and living from that place and evolving. But at the same time, looking at these huge concepts.
Right.
Like, wow. The wonder of it all.
It's easy. It's so easy to get lost in this. And this is something I've dealt with since my experience, my NDE experience. Is like, how deep do I go? Because if I go too deep, it makes this physical experience bullshit. It's like, why am I doing this? But when I stay in this place and know that the experience of the universe is love, right? For me, and I have the opportunity by being here physically to express the universe's truth in love, in energy, in giving good tidings to people and love and appreciation, acknowledgement to people, so if we are all part of the energy, we are all the same. Okay. So when I give people love, when I give people acceptance, what I'm doing is I'm ultimately giving myself acceptance and love, because I am part of that same energy. Scientists have said that we are living within an energy field. Well, if we're energy, we are part of that field. We look at ourselves as having eyes and a nose and a mouth, but that's not us. We're behind that. We're behind the eyes. We're behind the face. We're behind the body. We are the energy within the universe. So if we're giving energy to people that take that energy and allows them to cultivate and generate a higher frequency of energy, then we are doing for the universe, which is doing for us. We're doing the same thing for us. We're giving that to us, basically, which is why when we give love to people, we feel a great sense of pride and respect for ourselves. It's why when you give love to others, it becomes the greatest superpower that you have, because you're no longer just giving love to your physical body that's going to die, trying to create wealth, trying to create, whatever. You're giving that out to other people to help generate a better existence, and which allows them to get out of the defensive mindset of reality and go on the offensive, because they feel they have empowered themselves through your words, through your expressions to them, to become who they are. And now they can view the perspective of reality in a different regard. And that transforms the energy that they're intaking into a greater power. And that ultimately goes back into the universe. So we are literally all one. We come from one place. We come from one energy. We are the energy that we're seeing in the universe. But another problem that we have is that we are constantly looking for love and what love is. See, and the problem with that is that you're looking for love, not realizing that you are love. You are the physical manifestation of what love is. So you're looking at love through blinders, and you're going out not realizing that you are love. So when you're going to seek love, you're going to try to find love, you are that love. All you have to do is become. Just become. You don't have to find love. You are the love, and then you give that love out to people. And in doing so, you're cultivating an experience of love for them as well. So I think the biggest thing with people today is if they can realize that they are the love that they seek from others, they will live a better existence. They don't need love from anybody. They just need to realize that they are the love, and they have to embrace and empower themselves into becoming that in every regard and respect, in every action they take in this reality.
Totally. But so often we have to go through a great deal of pain or to get to that point, to just, and it only takes a moment to make a decision to change. And then we, reinforce good practices, good habits, good practicing of gratitude, really cultivating that within the body. And then realizing every time you give something a little for somebody else, it fills you back up, and then you resonate better. But, that's, I guess, the the wonders of life, isn't it?
Yeah. It starts with habits. And that's the thing, is reaffirming your habits. It takes, 30 to 60 days to establish a habit and to establish a neural pathway in your mind. So living this and thinking about it and only doing it sporadically will never create the truth. But continually living that purpose and living in that moment every day for 30 to 60 days, you'll start to realize that, okay, this is start to feel real.
Yeah. And that's why I get very passionate about the retreats we run here in Australia, because we run 3 and 5 nights.
Right.
And then what that does is it really gets people out of their current environment, out of the people and everything, and who they've told themselves who they are.
Right.
And they completely plucked out in the beautiful rainforest up here in northern New South Wales.
Oh, wow.
But then what happens is that you really get to dive in deep, and you really start to create a new reference point by new neural networks, by having experiences that you go,
right.
I get it now. It's not going to say it's going to transform your life forever all in one, but what it does, it gives you the tools, the reference point and the reinforcement. So when you go back home, you've now got a new reference to navigate from, to who you truly want to become as you continue to cultivate the work.
Right.
See, and that's how I changed, from having, different experiences by placing myself in. Because I did an ayahuasca journey back in 2013.
What did you think about that?
It changed my life, but because I was so terrified, I fully surrendered from it. But afterward, it was like, okay, so I know that was a psychedelic that did that, but was that the psychedelic, or was that, even though it felt so real at the time? So my journey then was to go inward and see if I could recultivate that without the psychedelics, which I did, and had actually more profound experiences, far greater than that happened. But, and that was just my journey, and I haven't felt the call to go back to it since. But I guess creating a new roadmap, and as you work your way through it, you're then able to cultivate that life and have the courage to lean into the heart and come from those places as you move forward in life, right?
Agreed.
It's huge. It's huge.
So
Jeremiah,
we'll have to have another discussion one of these days about the ayahuasca journey. And so, because my DMT, I went down a hallucinogenics journey as well after my NDE, to try to explain my NDE to me, because I'd never done hallucinogenics before. And so my DMT experience was the closest thing I've had to my NDE experience. And so it was a very powerful journey. So I compliment you.
Yeah, we got lots. We definitely got another podcast in this, Jeremy. That's for sure, mate. I got one last question before we wrap things up, mate. And that is, with everything we've covered today, is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners to ponder on?
Yeah, I mean, I want people to understand that you are a beautiful expression of what love is to this universe. And in every day and every moment that you go through your life, you have the opportunity to express the love of the universe to another person, and like Neil Walsh says, become a reasoning for your soul to grow. Live for your soul, because you are not your body. You are not the arm. You are not the hair. You are not anything on your body. You are the soul that is behind the expression of the body. So live that purpose of love, and live that purpose of the experience with others, and give them an example of what love is, this love that you're looking for in life. So.
Beautiful, mate. Thank you. And Jeremiah, I just got to say, I'm so grateful I stumbled across you somewhere at some time, but we've been trying to hook this podcast up for a while.
I'm so glad.
But have you got a platform, or is there anyone people can reach out at all, or Facebook or anything?
So, I encourage people to reach out to me on Facebook, or on Instagram, Popsicle76, I think it is. Maybe you can put in the link in the video, but, I'm working on getting a book together. I'm working on getting a website together right now, because I really believe that this information will help people. So I don't have anything yet. This is all just a start of my journey. So,
hopefully this will prompt you into action a bit more for that stuff, mate. It's definitely needed. And I have no doubt more and more people will want to connect with you. And I'm sure, wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on today. That was epic, Jeremiah. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.